1 to 2 minute kind of introduction to who you are. I mean, I know you guys so intimately. I know all the kind of cool insider details, but for our audience who may not know about you and your brilliance, we'll start with Alexandra, then go to Andi, and then end with Sean, maybe just giving a 2 minute of who you are, why you love downtown, and who you're with.
Hey, thanks. Liz should be the one running the show because she's the one who's amazing at downtown and activating it, but she chose us, so here we are. I am Alexandra Frey. I am the Executive Director of the 80/20 Foundation. I'm talking on Community Labs, which I have been a volunteer for onboarding Somerset and new organizations to get to start testing the communities. And yeah, we love downtown because it's our mission. It's what we want. The 80/20 is about attracting, growing, and retaining talent, partnering with nonprofits and community leaders like Liz, Sean, Andi, to create programs that support entrepreneurs and small businesses, local San Antonio companies. We want them all.
Awesome. That's awesome. I have to say, I am just kind of in awe and a little bit intimidated being around the three of you because all three of you are personal heroes of mine, and I've loved getting to know Liz as her co-worker. Before that, though, I just knew her as this like amazing, elf that would come through and make magic. And Alexandra, I so admire what you're doing. And Sean, oh my gosh, you are a god.
Pray God, pray God.
But I am the OG downtowner. I laugh because I have been since like the early 2000s, just this passionate urbanist, I guess you could so to speak. And it's really funny. My background is in marketing and PR, but I went back for my master's in, it's actually architecture, but urban planning. And just because I love it so much, it's just like, I have to know more. I mean, how are people going to listen to you unless you actually know what you're talking about? But I've been involved in a lot of different things as a volunteer downtown. Before I came here, I was at SASW, the school district, for 7 years, because I care a lot about the urban core, and education is a big part of that. Done a lot of different things. I was a founding chair of Hemisphere Conservancy, co-founder of the 501c3 Prom. I chaired Leadership San Antonio last year. Just a lot of different things, but all about the just the love for the people down here. And most importantly, I just love people. I just and so it's like I'm a champion of public space because it's like you talk about equity, it like brings people in, and downtown is the urban space. And so it's a neighborhood, and I'm just really proud of it. I'm proud to make a little difference if I can, and just proud to be here today. So thanks.
Well, and it's worth noting to people who don't know Andi too, she also lives downtown, which I think is a huge and important perspective, right? She lives on Houston Street, so she's really been intimately involved in kind of seeing the changes and most recently kind of the impact of the pandemic. So just something to think about as an additional perspective and bonus. I mean, God, Andi, when you're naming off all those things, and Alexandra, I mean, again, this is such a mighty group. And now Sean has to follow that.
Impossible. It's literally impossible. Mine's going to be like 15 seconds, like, oh, my name's Sean. Well, as you have seen, I am joined here by the reason why we're here today. I mean, all y'all beautiful people are literally the reason why we can exist. My name is Sean. I'm a co-founder of Pinch Boil House in downtown San Antonio. I am a transplant to the city, and I think the beautiful thing, and this is kind of a segue into why I love downtown, but the beautiful thing about downtown, and this is so cliche and I hate saying this, but it's so true, is the community. Like, I have never been in a city where in a short time of under a year or two, like I felt like I genuinely belonged, or I felt like people wanted to hear from me or bring me into certain situations or conversations. And because of the group that we have here today, like I genuinely felt that way when I moved here. And so I think the community in downtown San Antonio is second to none. It's incredible. It's fast paced. Like when you want things done, they do everything that they can to get it done. And, I'm just over here slanging some food. So I'm really not like doing anything crazy. It's really these people around me like pushing us to be in a place where we can be somewhat successful. So
He's being very modest, everybody. He's brilliant. It's not just food. It's really become kind of a gathering place for innovators. I know that I go there when I'm trying to find maybe people that are avoiding me because it's such a social place. So thank you for that, Sean. But I know our time is precious. And again, I really thank everybody for being here. I think everything you guys are doing personally, professionally, and through the pandemic is really inspiring. And I think there's some long-lasting takeaways that creative entrepreneurs and others can really benefit from, because COVID has kind of changed everything, and remaining nimble yet thoughtful and serving the community is kind of a challenge. But if we do it right, it's so rewarding, and it can have really long-term catalytic and very sustainable lasting impressions and really making a difference. So again, excited about this conversation, but we're going to jump right in. So I'll start with Sean. Take us back to March and April. Like, what were you working on? What was it like? And then kind of how did that change?
Yeah, I think it was crazy. So we were riding like an all-time high, January, February, and the first half of March, we were like, it was the most we've ever done in terms of top line revenue, like month over month. And so we were like, wow, like we did it, we're there. And then literally in a matter of 2 weeks, it went from, this crazy adrenaline high to like this start kind of like reality of, whoa, man, like this is getting crazy. And literally on March 28th, we closed our doors. And so I think during that time, there was just so much to process. Our friends in the industry are, the people that are analogous to us, like, hotels and things, and the service industry in general, and hospitality in general, were just crushed. And so there was this like whirlwind of emotions of trying to figure out what to do so Pinch can survive, and then B, like trying to be as empathetic as possible to everyone around us. And so I just remember, well, I don't remember much. I kind of blacked out, it feels like. But what I do remember is just this like, you nailed it, Liz, when you said nimble and being agile, like just this feeling of like, okay, I felt this for a second, but we have to do everything we can to survive. And moving forward, let's just keep moving forward. Like, what can we do to get out of this? What can we do to pivot or to be more agile or more nimble? And so, I think that was something that's hard. In the food and beverage industry, there's a lot of pride and stubbornness. And so for us to kind of have to swallow our pride and say, no, like, we have to get rid of this, we have to change this, we have to do this or try this. And so it was a crazy time. I mean, it still is a crazy time, but it definitely it was a humbling and sobering moment that I think ultimately was a blessing in disguise, though, for us.
Well, and I'll echo something. Sean was very early on able to make really thoughtful but somewhat comedic, right? Ways to make light of it. Like, I remember ordering my meal pack and it came with a roll of TP, and I'm not even exaggerating. That toilet paper was precious. Yeah. And the fact that you were making light of it, but also reinforcing the need, I think, psychologically, it really helped, I think, ease people's mind and also remind them of kind of the nature that is Pinch and you guys. So I thought that was brilliant, and the masks as well. You guys were able to pivot, and I think for me as a fan, as someone who goes and tries to eat at Pinch often, like I was like, wow, okay, I can not only get my meal, but they're thinking of this, and they're making me laugh while doing it when I'm kind of terrified. So kudos to you on that, because it is a delicate balance, right? You can definitely go the wrong way and be tone deaf, and you guys, I just felt like we're thoughtful, but you were able to do it in such a constructive way that was so you. So
thank you. Yeah, I mean, we had so many rolls of toilet paper left, like in the restaurant, and we had closed our dining rooms. We were like, no one's gonna be using these, and so I was like, we might as well just give them away, you know? So
now we can add Cray and TP God to your title. So you heard it here first. You know, and Andi, you were living downtown. You know, our work at Centro is very intimately involved in the public and district. So, you know, we're on the streets, you know, on the front line. You know, how was your experience both as a PID perspective and also as a downtown resident?
You know, it's the craziest thing. I was thinking about what Sean said, and, you know, start of the year, I'm like, because I was coming from SASD, and I was so excited to start at Centro, working with Liz and super cool people. And I'm like, yeah, it's going to be the best year ever. My friends are like, please shut up, you know, like shut up. And it was so funny. And I started at Centro. I'm like, God, this is going to be the best year. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, like a few weeks later, pandemic. And I'm like, what? Okay. And then of course, you know, immediately, you know, your reaction is like, well, we'll get through this. We'll get through this. I'm a super optimistic person. I'm like, yeah, we're going to get through this. And as the weeks went by, it wasn't getting any better. And, you know, like to Sean's point, it's like, oh my gosh, you know, the places that I love to go eat and drink and, you know, just everybody was just there. Everything was closed. It was shuttered. A few places were still open. But then I would see so many people on the street. You know, I you know, saw people, you know, but like I talked to a guy, and I practice this really crazy thing, just, you know, random acts of kindness, of course, but smiling at people like, hey, Alexandra, you know, how's it going? You know, because you see people like, yeah, I just lost my job. Yeah, I just got laid off. And I'm like, okay, you know, and so you're kind of filled with this, you know, crazy kind of emotion. And I'm not kidding you. So I walk to work. I walk everywhere. I'm walking, or I'm on a scooter, or I'm on a bike usually. And so it's really funny. I really can feel this people. I felt the absence of the people that I always saw. And then I saw more people that I didn't see, like folks that couldn't get into Haven. And so they were hanging out on our street. And I kept thinking, God, you know, and I mean, it was really hard. And I kept thinking, what can I do, you know, to put some, you know, joy into people's lives? And so Liz knows how crazy I am. And it was just funny. I just went to bed one night, and it was funny. I'm like, I know what I'm going to do. I'm just going to like tag everything like with messages of hope. And then I'm like, no, I'll get arrested. So like, the next best thing was, you know, just to make little hearts. And so I made a bunch of these little si se puede hearts. I'm like, I'll just be like the little magic elf, you know, that just like puts little happy signs around. And so si se puede, for anyone, you know, who may know about it, it, you know, means yes, we can. And Dolores Huerta, who is one of my personal heroes, it was kind of like, dude, like, get your act together. We are going to make it like focus, focus, focus. We're in this together and we can do it. And so I just put these little hearts around. But the crazy thing was, so I saw people and they're like, I like your signs, you know, like you made me happy, you made me smile. And that gave me such joy because they saw me putting them up. But it was kind of an anonymous thing. And to Liz's point, and really, and thanks to Centro too, it started taking off. And I had other people, like there were signs in the medical center, there were signs out on 1604, and I'm like, how'd that happen? I have not been out here. But people were just taking it and making their own signs, just putting the message out there. And it was really cool. Personally, you know, just to do a little something. I'm not an artist. I'm a maker, but I'm not an artist. But it was just really cool to see how many people kind of just needed a little nugget of hope or joy. And so it was really cool. I'm talking way too much about it.
No, and again, we're passionate about downtown. We're passionate about our projects, but yeah. I have to recognize and thank, you know, you, Andi, and Sean, and also Alexandra for being vulnerable today. You know, this is a brave and safe place, and talking about hemorrhaging businesses and lack of users, yeah. It's hard, right? It's not the easiest, and especially when you're so intimately involved in that. So I appreciate, as always, your candor and also your empathy, right? Because I think the commonality of this group is we're definitely wildly empathetic and compassionate. And I think that's what makes downtown specifically so special. So I appreciate that, Andi. Alexandra, I mean, you were coming off of maternity leave. I mean, I was waiting for Alexandra to return to downtown for happy hours, and then the pandemic happened. How was that experience for you? I mean, you guys have been like Sean and Andi on such an upward, you know, trajectory on engaging and diversifying users and really creating this district within a district of innovation and creativity. How was that like for you?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely difficult. So we had just changed the mission to the foundation in December, right before I went on maternity leave, or a little bit before. And so I was really excited for the new year to see what other new nonprofits that we hadn't worked with in the past, projects that we could, accelerate our mission that we haven't done or tried before. And so um, it was difficult, but I mean, I have to give it to my team, Tu and Anna. They're the ones that were in it with our internship program, which is so huge for us, the Students with Startups program. And so I think that was the hardest thing of dealing with, are we canceling this program or not? And I think what we came to realize, I mean, it's pretty obvious, but everybody was in it, right? It wasn't just a company, like the company side, it was the consumer side too. So we were all in the same exact boat. And I think that's what made it possible, besides all of the hard work that Tu and Anna did. But that everybody knew that they were all in the same boat. So, hey, of course, I think, and Tu might get mad at me if I say this, but I think our program is really geared towards the students, right? Like, we have great companies. We are definitely promoters of our businesses, but we need these students to like work at our companies, to love San Antonio, fall in love with San Antonio. And so I think this year it was a really beautiful thing, because I remember having a conversation with the two of them of, I mean, this year it's really about our companies. Like, we need to give them, these highly talented students, they're going to be remote. Some of them might not live in San Antonio, but how dare we take that away from them, right? I mean, for instance, if we had a student who accepted the program from Pittsburgh, they're supposed to fly down for the summer, but instead we said, stay there, stay remote, but still work for our companies. And I think that's what really, helped keep it alive, keep the program alive, that we were still able to do that. And then on top of that, the foundation, Tu and Anna and I made the call to pay for in full one intern for every company. And so to be able to do that, to keep the talent, was just something that, we're in a fortunate position to be able to do that. And I know not a lot of people are, and to be a great steward of Graham's money is what I always want to do. And I think that he didn't bat an eye when I asked him. And it was probably our most unique but strongest cohort of students ever this year.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, Alexandra, that commitment to, that youth, I think is so important, right? Because it's not just about, retaining, it's about talent attraction and recruitment. So the fact that you stayed vigilant to that, and I love how you just Graham, I love how he's just a first name Graham. I'm like, Mr. Weston, hi, like, but again, you guys have stayed to the mission, and that kind of leads into you guys talked about it a little bit in terms of what inspired you, but I think for this purposes, I always like to take the inspiration and kind of turn it on its head and poke it. Like, were there some non-negotiables, right? Like, Sean, you're in the thick of it. You've lost customers and you're having to pivot. Like, were there non-negotiables in what you were going to do and how you were going to utilize either your digital platforms? What were some things that were going through your head, or barriers, challenges, or just like, we're doing this because of this and no other reason?
Yeah, I think for us, I mean, that's a fantastic question, first of all. I think like our number one priority was our employees. And so it was like, A, are the decisions we're making keeping them safer? And B, are the decisions we're making gonna make them money? Because like at the end of the day, they have families and mouths to feed and food that they need to put on the table. So it's like, it seemed counterintuitive, but like our non-negotiable was like, we have to close, because the sooner we close, the faster our staff can be on unemployment and get money from, that stimulus, as well as the extra $600 kicker from the federal government. And they'll be making more money than they've ever made before. And so for me, it was weird, because again, like we talked about this like pride thing. It was like, like, it's not about pinch because that's the name, but like our staff, you know, Dom, Cap, Diego, the names go on, like they are the ones that provide you the actual food. And so if we can't give them security, then it doesn't matter if we can ever reopen, you know, like they're not ever going to be able to do anything. So that was our number one non-negotiable, was like, hey, we're going to let our staff go, but in the meantime, like they're going to make more money that way. And then for Andrew and myself, we were thinking, all right, now that the four walls don't exist anymore, Pinch is closed, what are other creative ways we can do to make money, you know? And like at the end of the day, not only that, but how can we give back to the community in a time of need? So like those were two other things we were thinking about. And I think I say this was a blessing in disguise earlier, because I think like this forced us to not only be uncomfortable, but it forced us to partner up and collaborate with people we might not have before, because we were so comfortable, you know? And so because we were so content with what we were doing. And it helped kind of create these fun little collaborations with other restaurants, with other nonprofits in terms of giving back. And it helped us create relationships with people we've always wanted to be with, like, you know, Spurs Give. And so it was, as devastating as it still is, it was definitely like a moment where we knew our vision and our mission were aligned in the right way. And most importantly, like we really care about the well-being of our staff. And I think like that was something that they took away from the situation as well.
Well, I'll jump to Alexandra, because I think you guys have the same mindset when you're, you know, setting up testing at Geekdom, right? You really stepped in and said, like, we want workforce back, right? We need to provide those options. So it sounds like a non-negotiable and kind of criteria for you is like, one, how do we get workforce back in, right? So they can be doing, but also how do we get them back in what they're exceptional at, which is innovation and creative solutions and remaining nimble and flexible. Can you talk a little bit about that and kind of that experience?
Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, I wouldn't say it's nothing new to us, right? So, I mean, I know it sounds a little jargony, but like Graham, when we tend to make investments with catalytic impact, and when I say that, I mean that we tend to be the first to invest in something to get it started, to help San Antonio get what it needs more quickly. So in this particular instance, it was testing. And when we were doing the pilot with Geekdom, prior, I mean, the community labs was happening, right? And so nobody really knew that it was happening. We just needed to make sure it worked, right? And I think not just testing, right? We had questions of, will we have behavior changes? If we test, are people just going to use this as a free testing place, or are they actually going to come back to work? And I think Geekdom can show you the data. It's that it has changed, but even myself, like I wasn't going in, I had the baby and they both have respiratory issues. And so I was like far and away from all of it. But the second you start offering that testing, what it does is that it took people, we were in a crisis and it was a pandemic, everybody was fearful, everything shut down. And then we moved to caution, where it was just masks, social distancing, hand washing. And what we're doing with the testing is trying to get us to confidence. And confidence, when we get to confidence, that's when we can go to normal, where we can move back to normal. Because caution really doesn't have solutions. And it's not that we think that we have the solution. It's just that we weren't moving to confidence, and we weren't getting people confident by just continuing with masks and social distancing and let COVID spread. And then when it's done, we can all do that. Well, who knows, right? And so yeah, that's what we were doing with Geekdom. There was a non-negotiable. We couldn't just wait. We couldn't just wait to figure out for a vaccine to come to get the confidence back in the people to get back to work. And so, yeah, we tested with Geekdom, and now we are up and running and testing with Somerset. And the thought behind testing the children and testing schools first is it's important. Children are important. The youth are important. The loss of learning during COVID is going to be much greater than we all think and know. But if you get the students back in school, then the parents can get back to work too. And I think that when everybody's working, everybody feels their best. You know, it's fun to stay at home, but staying at home unemployed for longer than you're comfortable with is not fun, and nobody's happy. And so I think that's what we truly want. It's just getting people the confidence that they need. And community labs is could be a solution for that.
Well, and for those who haven't seen it, I mean, it's in, you know, the Wall Street Journal, so it's definitely positioning Centro and specifically downtown as, again, this empathetic, radically compassionate, innovative, hyper local solutions, right, that other communities can benefit. And I've been so inspired that San Antonio has kind of been the gray area in state and national in terms of how we're reacting, whether it's the food bank, whether it's an EDM drive-through, right? Like they're a drive-through zoo. I mean, I can't tell you how many calls that I get from other kids and bids of like, what is in the water there? And I'm like, well, don't drink the potable water, but we got a lot of good stuff. You know what I mean? Like, we're San Antonio, and I love that we're showing up. But you know, I want to pivot a little bit because, you know, I like talking about uncomfortable or having some tension, but you know, one of the benefits of having a lack of users, at least for us, is getting to kind of put some things up, like art, you know, and adding color and culture to a downtown that really could use it. And so, but with that comes this kind of really unsettling feeling of like, wow, this is an opportunity to capitalize on, but it's during such a trying time. Andi, you know, has been leading the charge, you know, murals every other week with more to come, and not just murals, but I think you hit the nail on the head earlier. You know, these art murals are really more than just the artist and paying a living wage to an artist, but they really are love notes from our very own Andi, because, you know, if you can't tell by her color and her earrings, even though she says she's not an artist, she looks like one. You would never think that she's not the one creating it. You know, Andi, how has it been being able to really use downtown as your canvas on public and private, and really delivering some of those really inspiring and important messages in our downtown?
Well, it's so funny. Thank you. First of all, you're too kind and way too, that's too much. But I go back to what Sean had said about downtown being a neighborhood. And I think that's why I love it so much. And all of us at Centro, Liz, Matt Brown, our CEO, we are madly in love with downtown because it is a neighborhood and it's people. I mean, you go around in a subdivision and you may see people, you may not. I lived in a subdivision and there were people like, I lived there for 10 years and I met people like, well, you've lived here for 10 years, so have I. You know, it's like, how can that happen? But in downtown, we are connected. And we're part of an urban ecosystem that we depend on each other. And so, you know, the idea of what we at Centro do, and Alexandra and Sean both, you referenced, it's like at the beginning, we were in pain because our neighbors are in pain. And we're just reeling like, what do we do? What do we do? And, you know, and so you put a little kindness out there. You're like, well, that's great. But like to Alexandra's point, you have to start feeling like there's safety, there's trust. And what Sean said about, you know, just keeping your employees safe and, you know, making them, there's dignity when you work, you know, there's comfort in routine and just like knowing everything's okay. And so, you know, at Centro, I mean, Art Everywhere is something that we're doing, our Main Street, you know, survival program to help small businesses. But the art is a super cool thing that initially pre-COVID we envisioned to, you know, make it super cool and fun and interesting. But it got to be a bigger thing because you can't social distance. There weren't maybe, you know, chances to gather, you know, all the events that Liz puts on. You're like, hey, come on down, it's super fun. Come gather over at Pinch and hang out. It's like, we couldn't do that. So what can you do? And so I think what both of you had mentioned is that, you know, it is an opportunity to pivot and to think differently. And so the art is an economic driver. I mean, it does make downtown interesting. It is something that businesses appreciate, and maybe eventually when everybody's back, it's going to be a cool thing in another way. But it's really important. Art in our community is so undervalued, and so the idea of putting an artist to work, paying him something for his work, is a really great thing. It's another way to lift up, you know, our creative community, and that's really important. And I think sometimes we forget, you know. And I think the other thing is that the idea of art itself, it forces us to question ourselves. It forces us to think differently. It kind of gets us out of our own comfort zone. And so it could be something as simple as a little fun mural, like, oh, that's cute. Or it could be something, you know, that forces us to question who we are. I mean, right after the pandemic, you know, we had a 1-2 punch. It was like, whoa, pandemic, whoa, social unrest. It's like, what? Like, you know, what next? You know, raining frogs, you know, I mean, it's just, it was crazy, you know? And so the idea to be able to let art essentially is letting people tell their stories. And so again, you're kind, Liz, it's not me, it's these people who are artists in art, who are like, kind of like what Alexandra and Sean are doing, putting this out there for people to like, hey guys, it's going to be okay. This is good. This is, you know, it brings us closer as a community. And I mean, it's like, if we don't have that, what do we have? And so as crazy as it is, I mean, in a way, the pandemic has forced me personally to look at my neighborhood differently, to place more, you know, value, to appreciate it in different ways. And the Art Everywhere program, we want to put more art up. That's what we do at Centro, is to help downtown be super cool. But one of the, you know, experiences, one of the other things we did, we put a street mural around Travis Park. I don't know if anyone saw it, but I had this crazy idea.
We did, Andi. We did.
No, but Vocab Sanderson, who's our poet laureate, I mean, it's kind of like, how do you express the pain, you know? And so she was so wonderful, and like, tell me something, like, give me a stanza of your poem, let's do something. And so again, you know, thanks to, you know, all of, you know, people like you guys and everybody else, you know, making it possible, you know, it makes our city cool, and it makes it interesting, but it also, like Liz, you said, being vulnerable, putting it all out there, those are the ties that bind. And so, you know, just really grateful to our entire Centro team. You, Liz, are amazing. And all of you guys, Sean and Alexandra, I'm overwhelmed.
Well, that's why we're all champions, and that's why we're all here. So I'll be sending championship rings to this team.
Oh, and the trophy.
Right. You know, and I love, you know, that we started kind of from a place of like, what was it like, right? It was a punch to the gut. Then we're dealing with social unrest, right? And really looking at our community and checking and making sure that we're showing up for all of our neighbors, to Andi's point. You know, in that way, you know, how do you feel downtown has changed, right? Like, I personally, again, there's this weird kind of disposition of, man, we're making a lot of really incredible things happen that we've been kind of hoping would happen either organically or that we could create the space for. And with the lack of users, you're seeing, you know, like the new park, you know, that shot up in a second. You're seeing bond work in Zona Cultural. You're seeing kind of these improvements that are happening at rapid pace because of the lack of users. You know, how and can we kind of as a community utilize that opportunity to really reconnect specifically with hyperlocals? I know that for me, you know, every time Andi's putting this beautiful art up, it gives me a reason to activate, but because I can't gather, I'm an outlaw right now. I'm a mass gatherer. I don't gather in small bits, right? But it's been refreshing to be able to almost take a pause, reset, and ensure that the activations, that the work plans, that the planning that was underway is still in line, it's thoughtful, and that it again speaks to kind of this, I mean, spectrum of new criteria, new, you know, thoughtfulness, and new kind of users or disenfranchised users that we want to welcome back. You know, how are you guys looking forward, and how do you think that can help us versus hinder us? Sean, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think that I guess in particular with the pandemic, like it for better or for worse, forced a lot of us to just kind of sit there and think, you know, and there was a lot of like quiet solitude, at least for me. I don't have any children, so You know,
Sorry, Alexandra.
and so, it was this introspective period where I was like, okay, I've never really had this before, where I've never had a chance to sit there and say, what I was doing before really for the community? How was it for the community? And was it like to the best of our ability? Or another way to think of it was like, am I doing enough? Are the ideas that we have now have we just been coasting and been content for 3 years? Like we're not, have we stopped pushing the envelope? And so like, I think, for me, connection to a community comes down to being able to connect to that company or that business or that idea. And so it was a time for me to say, all right, well, what are other ways we can connect to the community? Or I guess in other words, what are other ways people can connect to us that we haven't already done? And so like for that, we wanted to start doing things in terms of like collaborations with other restaurants that we may not have worked with before, like I talked about. And in doing so, it kind of not only broadens our reach in the community, but it also creates more spaces where people can hopefully in the future meet, or hopefully in the future, this can be like a staple spot for special events, celebrations, awkward first dates, anything, And so like, that kind of caused us to start doing a bunch of pop-ups, around the city. And it was kind of weird because like we had to find a way to like make it socially distant and safe, but it was a way for us to connect with the community that I think was feeling a little pent up, a little locked up, and they wanted to do something. And so it was like, kind of like how Liz, you talked about this drive-through zoo, it was like, well, what are other ways we can do to get people excited about food again, or excited about sharing a meal with people at home that, they're not just, eating something that they cooked, and which is, I'm sure, amazing, but sometimes you miss the community aspect of going out and sitting down over a nice meal. And so for us to kind of create this hyper local kind of idea that we're talking about, we collaborated with a barbecue restaurant in close to the Missions called South Barbecue. And we said, hey, let's do something that the city hasn't experienced before in terms of like flavor, but also with, another staple in the city. And so we started doing like a Southeast Asian curry meets Texas smoked barbecue. And then that ended up becoming like a really fun thing that people look forward to. And then now we have a spot, like a small little shoebox of a spot opening up. And, that all came about because of coronavirus. Like I, again, never would have taken the time to think about other ways to be in the community or partnering up with other people, because we're just so in our heads all the time. And the issues that we think are issues are really even not that big of issues to begin with. And so the second we have the space to be able to be introspective, I think that was the biggest blessing for us and the biggest kind of catalyst for collaboration.
Dang, I had no idea, and I am the #1 fan of Sean and all of his culinary feats, but I love how that came about. If you really think about us as a city and historically, we're a creative city of gastronomy, and I can't think of a better evolution of that and honoring of that with that smashing up, but also of different cultures, and especially with the Missions, right? That's our story, that's our history. So what a lovely kind of gift and takeaway. I know I'm excited about curry. I mean, I've been low-key stalking the Instagram. Sean already knows. I'm like, are you popping up? Are you coming downtown? What are you doing?
I know.
Thank you for sharing that, Sean. That's an incredible story. I think a lot of people can really think of that, and I'm with you as well. I mean, Andi knows I was in my headspace for a month. I mean, I was really, this is a vulnerable, space, but I was terrified of activating again. I mean, it was traumatic because it didn't just come with, to your point, I'm not just popping up, right? It's got to be social distance. It's got to fill needs. It's got to fill mental and social kind of gaping holes. And there was pressure, right? Because you don't want to get it wrong and you want to show up for your city. So I totally echo that. And I think you guys did an amazing job. Andi, I've been like really inspired about how Si Se Puede, you mentioned how it kind of took off. I remember watching council sessions and having, District 3 Councilwoman Rebecca Villagran with it in the background. How does it feel you know, for it to start from, you know, literally a sign, right? Andi made it out of cardboard. She had red hands. She looked like a murderer on the street. But like that it started from something so special, but something so intimate, and that it's evolved into like billboards and masks, right? I mean, like I'm seeing it everywhere, and people are telling me about it now versus the other way around. I mean, I can't think of a greater gift, but you know, how do you feel now that it's kind of manifesting in these larger dynamic ways?
But, you know, I mean, that's really kind. And it's funny because I think to what, you know, Sean said, sometimes the best ideas aren't the things that you strategize and plan and do a SWOT analysis, but they're just the things that just come to you in those moments. And the funny thing is, it's really, the whole point is just, it's about kindness, about reaching out and, you know, kind of like, hey guys, this is going to happen. But, you know, I think that, you know, what we do at Centro, I mean, all of us, you know, it's really crazy, but it's like, you know, we've got to figure out a way to make it happen. And, you know, I love, Sean, the way, like you said, you integrated these things like, wow, that's a crazy thing. I'm waiting for some indigenous grains, by the way, wink, wink. But, grown on the grounds of Mission San Jose. But I, you know, but again, it's that thing where, you know, like you take something, you're like, well, this is what I was doing, and this is what we thought we were going to do. And like Alexandra, it's like, well, no, like, dude, we've got to like figure out a way to get kids back in school, because it's like a, you know, it's like a domino thing. And so we have to start somewhere. And so, you know, that the heart is just a very tiny part of it, but it's like anytime that you can ignite, you know, it's about empathy, but it's also about just this like kindness, just this, you know, unequivocal, unconditional love that it's like we all have for each other. And it's, you know, kind of like, I'm trying to think of what it was an image I saw, but it was, they were trying to rescue someone out to sea. And so each person like grabbed someone else, and it was like they stretched all the way. There must have been like 40 or 50 people, like this human chain. But it was kind of, to me, it was such a visual image of like, we need each other. And so like, you know, to Alexandra's point, like, you know, you're saving lives, you're getting kids back in school, and maybe not just physically, but emotionally and mentally. And the parents, you know, it's like, oh my gosh, having worked at a school district, I know it's so hard. And so it's such a gift. And Sean, you know, like pulling the community back, giving something good to look forward to. And, you know, this sense, even if you're, you know, a little bit far away, it's like, we're getting there. Hey guys, don't give up. Let's do this. I mean, it was really funny. I just saw Zach Barnhill, and it was so funny. It was like this idea of like, you know, we're back, we're going to be back, first in a small way and then in a bigger way, but it's like, it's going to happen. It's kind of like, you know, eyes on the prize, you know, just don't give up, don't lose focus. We're going to make it. And so I think from that little crumb of an idea, I think hopefully that wasn't the cause of it. I mean, it's in all of us, but if sometimes you just have to have something to kind of focus that, and hopefully, like, you know, what we're doing at Centro will be able to play a small part in helping us get back.
Alexandra, random question, because we're friends and we occasionally drink wine together, but like, is everybody in America like reaching out to you and Graham like, hey, I got an idea, hey, we need testing here? Like, what has the reception been, not just on a local level, but on kind of a national level? I mean, we're connected more than ever through Zoom and through technology. I imagine it's probably overwhelming, but I'm sure it's truly rewarding. Are there any kind of really great things that have grown out of that you're excited about, or how has it been just being a part of that?
I think just, I mean, nobody really wants to be the first one to do it, right? Nobody wants to take the risk in doing it. And I think, again, we're in a very fortunate position where we are able to do that sometimes. And also, you know, Graham doesn't have a medical degree to lose. So if this blows up in his face, like, he doesn't have this medical reputation that like he has to worry about. It's just like, okay, well, that happened, but we tried, right? Yes. Thankfully, I don't answer those requests. It is greater than we thought it would be. We knew that it would be. We knew that they would come. But another beautiful thing is that Graham has dedicated his time now moving forward to just going to every city that wants to talk and anybody that wants to know how to do it, and just completely opening our our resources up to them. Here's exactly how we did it. Here's the lab, here's the equipment, here's the price, here's the staff, everything. It's just kind of the thought that went into like, hey, we're not just going to do this for San Antonio, but they had been planning of like every step we took in San Antonio was documented to be like, anybody that wants this can have it. And prior to just having discussions with other leaders and in other cities and mayors and again, it wasn't our idea. We took it from the Broad Institute, and they have been phenomenal partners in helping us. Took bits and pieces from other people, Crush the Curve, Idaho. So, I mean, it wasn't just us, it was multiple people. And again, we're just in a fortunate position where we could execute it with the partners that we had at BioBridge and UT Health. And I'm going to forget people, but they're probably not watching anyways. So, but yeah.
Sorry, forgotten people, you were loved and we
yeah,
acknowledge you.
I think that's what's exciting is like, they just see it and they're like, hey, this is how we can help our city. This is how we can help, even, I think the biggest thing is cities, yes, states, leaders, but it's just companies from all over, like in school districts from all over, from Tyler, Texas to, Laredo, and everybody's just like, how can we do this? And that's what's exciting about it.
Well, I love that, because again, I think that speaks to who we are fundamentally, inherently, and that we are very open. I know that, when again, I referenced the drive-through zoo, I was getting, PIDs and bids from, Kalamazoo to, Ontario saying, what did you do? And I said, well, I didn't do it, but I'm going to connect you. So again, I think that reinforces that transparency and that hospitality that it really isn't ours, right? It is ours. And sharing that, and I'm all about recycling good ideas. I don't copyright any intellectual things that I come up with, because I really do want it for the greater public good. And I think that's a commonality through all four of us. We have, I think 5-7 minutes left. I want to kind of ask a little something more optimistic, like Andi. Fast forward to January 1st. It's January 1st, 2021. We're past this hellacious year of raining frogs and dumpster fires. What are you most, looking forward to getting back to? It can be, professionally or personally. I shared with Andi and somebody earlier, I got this call at another conference, and it really kind of choked me up, because I hadn't really stopped and thought about, everything I missed. And the thing that I missed most was children laughing at Hemisphere. Because one of the roles, that I get to play is I'm a director of play. And so I don't get to play with anybody, right? Like, so that's been really hard on me, personally, professionally, mentally. What are things that you're looking forward to? It doesn't have to be related to your business, but what are some things that you're really looking forward to getting back to normal, or just simple things that make your heart smile? Alexandra, let's start with you. You're like a babysitter and a bottle of wine.
Dude, if you have any babysitters in San Antonio area, please let me know. Looking for one currently, nanny. Sorry. I'm just the conversations of just to see people's mouths, if that's a weird thing to say, but like
human contact. Yes.
Yeah, to see to see how they're feeling. Everybody, coffee shops full, pinch full, every place outside, people walking. The park, I'm super, super excited about that park. I think that we can do some great things out there. I'm just the interaction. I think that's what I miss the most. And really, I mean, selfishly, again, I haven't had time to focus on the new mission of 80/20. And then now all of my time has been spent with community labs, and 2 has kind of just been running the show for us with our programs. And I'm so excited to give not only her the attention she needs, not that she needs a lot of attention, but to give 80/20 the attention it needs. I think that we can do big things and almost like a little reinvent the foundation of what we're going to do in 2021. That's exciting.
Well, that's exciting. Andi, I mean, besides everything, I mean, Andi and I are very much alike, and I'm so grateful that she was brought on before this kind of shit show started, to be candid, because I don't think I could have survived it without her, you know, eternal optimism. But Andi, what are things you're looking forward to, you know, specifically as a resident? I feel like you of all people, you know, definitely are impacted on a day-to-day, your walk to work, your commute down the street. You know, what are things that you're looking forward to personally and professionally?
You know, I think it's funny that you say that, because I think of myself, obviously, Centro, because Liz and I and our whole team, we love downtown so much. But personally, just as a resident, I just miss the people, kind of like what you said, Alexandra and Sean. It's like, you know, to walk by Pinch, to see people hanging out, you know. I mean, I used to have, you know, every Saturday lunch at Rosella. Like, James and I had our booth. It was like, that's what we do. We sit and look at all the people walking outside. I mean, you know, to go visit Benjamin and Zach over at Jet Setter, you know, like just walking. Like, we walk everywhere, like, and it's crazy, and it's just that feeling of neighborhood. Hey, how's it going? Hey, good to see you. You know, all of that, and that is because it's my neighborhood. It's kind of like, sometimes it feels like zombie town, and it's just like, gosh, I want people back, but more importantly than just for me, I want to feel like people feel like, okay, I'm gonna make it, I'm gonna be okay. Like the feeling of not just financially or economically, but having that hope that we had, like at the beginning of 2020. You know, remember 2020 is like, yeah, it's 2020, it's gonna be a great year. You know, so everybody's really excited about it, and we're filled with this confidence of the things that we were gonna do. And I want that, and I also want some healing, because I think we've all been through some different things, you know, whether it's you know, social justice, whether it's, you know, fear of our families falling ill, whether it's, like you said, you know, financial insecurity, kids homeschooling, whatever. But these things, you know, they're only temporary. And so I want us to be healing. And so this time, you know, in January is like, dude, we made it through. Like, I'm going to toast you. Like, you know, this is going to be okay. And so I can't wait till we can laugh. I say laugh about it because I have to laugh or otherwise I'll cry. But, you know, this is like a crazy year, and we woke up and things are all different, but anyway, but yeah, I know we will. I know we will. So,
Sean, besides me being at your restaurant 2 to 3 times a week, harassing you, you know, from the street level, what do you miss most? No, what are you looking forward to? What are things that, you know, I mean, I know I'm looking forward to a little curry barbecue place. I know that's what's keeping me motivated, but what are some things for you, man?
Yeah, I look forward to some more emotional and psychological wellness. I think I took that for granted in 2020, and it is hard. And so I miss like going to a masseuse and getting a massage, or going to the Bijou and watching a sick movie and eating popcorn and drinking an icy by myself. Like, I miss these little things, and I think that we take these things for granted. And, you know, obviously, like, this Zoom setting isn't a natural thing for humans. Like, we need physical contact and interaction. So, yeah, I just look forward to all these little simple things that we don't think about doing because we just usually get to do them. And then the second they're taken away, you're like, damn, like, this sucks. And so yeah, I just look forward to like being able to walk outside and not say, oh man, I left my mask. I don't know where I don't have a mask.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so I have to like keep a mask in every possible location so that if I forget, it's there. But I don't know. I also just want to end it by saying like it's a blessing and an honor to be on this with 3 badass women. That's freaking cool. And so I aspire to be like,
checks in the mail.
You know what I mean? I aspire to be like you guys. So I appreciate it big time, for real.
You're amazing. You're amazing. You are.
Well, on that note, it's hard not to end on that. You know, I do want to take this moment to wish all 3 of you continued health and wellness. You know, one of the other commonalities of the 4 of us is, you know, we're transplants. We're not originally from here. If you can believe that, right? So we're urban champions, not only for this hometown, but many others where our hearts are, where our families are, all over the world, really. So I love you guys. I'm so appreciative your time and talent, but more importantly, I'm just so grateful for the individual contributions that you guys and the organizations that you work with have done. You know, Sean was feeding homeless, you know what I mean? And it picked up the phone and was calling me like, who can I give this food to? That is a luxury that I do not, you know, take for granted. You know, Alexandra, sorry guys, it's downtown, so I got a ambulance passing in the background, but you know, Alexandra, the fact that you guys are taking, I mean, it's not a risk in my mind, it's moving the dial forward, and even, you know, taking that risk of Graham putting himself out there and saying like, no, I'm not a doctor, but we need to move forward. Like, I can't thank you guys enough for what you have done and what you continue to do to put our city in a national and international spotlight. It makes my job a lot easier, I know, but I will never stop thanking you for that. And then Andi, I mean, what started as a home art project that was supposed to just go on a couple places for your neighbors. No, I mean, you guys, the media on it alone, you know, it's like it's over 2 million in value. Like, you can't ask for that kind of natural, organic, and thoughtful campaign. So I know that our downtown is not only in good hands, but it's in safe hands, and I thank you for that. And I welcome anybody who's watching this now or later, if you want to be involved in reconnecting with downtown and really getting us back on track. You know, this is a group that I think is pretty open. You know, Alexandra needs a babysitter. Sean needs you to eat some curry, and Andi needs you to give her some more private walls for art. So if any of us can be helpful in making your dreams and downtown dreams come true, I want to offer us all up. But much gratitude to my urban champions, but more importantly, my friends, I hope. So love you guys, and thank you all for tuning in.
Love you,
again.
Liz, thank you. Awesome job, Liz.
Thank you.
I wanted to play We Are the Champions as we left, but again, computer issues. Love you guys. Stay well.
Good luck with everything. If I find a babysitter, I'll let you know. I'll see you downtown.
Get Alexandra a babysitter now.
See y'all.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.